Right then, I know why you've clicked the video, and yeah, okay, it's a little bit clickbaity, but I will get back to Blackpool in just a second. I wanted to give you a bit of a quick update as to how the birds are going. They've been doing really well since the last video. Right, as you can see, I decided the moisture in the loft was the main issue. So what I've done is I've put down, you know, this easy bed stuff, Azorbe, I think it is. It's used in like horse stables. Along with this mix, there's also some generic, you know, off-the-shelf supermarket cat litter that's mixed in as well to help keep the damp down. And from what I can tell, it's doing really well. I haven't had any wet patches as such or anything of that nature, so I'm really happy with the results for the time being. Obviously, that means I now have to get to the root and, you know, dry out the shed. As you can see, if I point you over at the door, there is some damp marks coming down the door and a few other bits and pieces, you know, around the joins further up. But in the actual main section of the loft, things are looking good. Right, to assist me with these, I've got these little sensors here. There's one in here and one in the other section. Right, I've got those little sensors, and what they do is they give me a reading, live reading, of how things are in the loft. They have to be connected to the Wi-Fi, but as you can see here, we're in the raised loft. Just wait for it to load a second. Alright, here's a live reading, like inside the raised loft. So it's currently saying it's 11 degrees with 96% humidity, which isn't great, I'll admit. And I don't know if you can see the chart there. It sort of gives you an idea of how it's going throughout the day. I've got one of these in each section of the loft, and it gives me a really good idea of what's going on. It will also tell me if the changes I make to the loft are improving things or going against me and working out the opposite way. So that's where we are at the birds. Next up, I wanted to talk about the Blackpool show. And as I'm sure many of you would have seen, yesterday there was rumours of the show being cancelled. I think it was Tumley Lofts, James Cook, that sort of alluded to the show not going the way we expect it to go, and then a bit later on he released a statement saying that Tumley Lofts Stud would not be in attendance of the show. Admittedly, I'm not knocking James, he's a great bloke. At the end of the day, he runs a business. If he can't you know, sell his birds at the show, you know, he's got to factor that in. And as we saw later in, or very late in the evening I should say, the RPRA released a statement saying that birds would not be allowed at the show, especially in the winter gardens and some of the hotels around Blackpool, because of the threat of avian flu. And that's understandable. They've got their hands tied by DEFRA, by AFRA, and they can only do what they're allowed to do in the rules. Obviously that changes things for a lot of people going to the show, because I'm sure as we all do, we all look around the birds while we're buying bits and pieces, but it means from a stock point of view you can't go into the show and handle the birds, pick them up, you know, have a feel of the birds before buying them. So what they've said is they're going to set up temporary a temporary housing, if you like. But they've said it might be a big marquee or something further down the road, about 10 minutes or so from the Winter Gardens, which sits just outside the zone. And you'll be able to go down there, handle the birds before buying them and viewing them. It's going to be the same sort of setup for a lot of the auctions around Blackpool in the hotels. None of the birds will be on site in the auctions. They're going to be, from what I've read, what I've been told, they're going to be put on big screens. You can see the pictures of the birds while the auctions are going on. Before that, they're going to have again viewing areas outside of the restriction zones, and from what I've read, you actually get a lot longer to go and view the birds and handle the birds and potentially have conversations, you know, with these studs, with the sellers, you know, because there's a longer period than you'd normally get in the auction room, because they have to get the next birds in and out again. So it could be, for the average fancier at least, maybe not so much for those selling the birds, but for us it could work out in our favour this way around, because there's been people saying they're not sure about going, but you know, the impact of doing things this way around could potentially mean birds get sold cheaper. As I say, you get more time to handle the birds, you know, really have a look at what you're buying. So it'll be interesting, it'll be different. It'll be a very different Blackpool than we used to, that's for sure. I'll put a link below, you know, to both of those statements. As I say, we'll still be in attendance. We'll be, you know, I'll be floating around some of the auction rooms, and we'll be in the Winter Gardens, I'm sure. Yeah, thank you very much for watching. As always, you know, like the video, share it if you can. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one.